Namaste, Devi or Sajna, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Sounds of Podcast. And with me, like always, is my wonderful, highly skilled, trained professional co-host, Mr. Parth Walunskar. And today, we've got someone really special all the way from Mumbai. We've got Miss Shreya Pattar. She's a freelance educator, a content writer, and has been doing some wonderful work via the means of Instagram and LinkedIn. We're going to be knowing more about her processes, her influences, why she does what she does, which is educating people on the basics of freelancing and a lot more. So Shreya, so good to have you here. How's it going?
Hi Bharat, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm really excited. As I said, I really liked all the other videos you guys have up on your podcast. So I'm really excited to be part of this.
That's so kind of you. We also like your content a lot, and it's what I really love about your content is that it's really no bullshit. It's really to the point. You're not forcing any sort of, you're not trying to, project any kind of forced positivity. I mean, each to its own, not to sort of throw shade on other people, but I think you are really giving some serious practical advice to all the budding freelancers and the people who are already in that thing. So for starters, how did you sort of come to the conclusion that this is something that I want to sort of express myself through? Like freelance education is something that I want to foray into via the means of social media. How did that come to be?
It wasn't actually planned, So one of the first places I started posting content on was LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And at the time when I started, I used to write a lot about just content, just about writing, about freelancing, a lot about client experiences, a lot about people not paying well, or finding a client who pays well. What's that like? How is it different from a client who has been negotiating for a long time? And I just put that out as stories, as you could say vlogs, but in text format, as LinkedIn posts.
Right.
And over time, I started getting a lot of messages from freelancers like, this is really cool. How can I do that? How can I find that? And I didn't realize really, but in that sense, I had already started foraying into this. I'm here to teach freelancing kind of thing. So that's that was a mix of what I did on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I also talked about a lot of other topics. But when I created Instagram, I thought that this is a space where I want to teach something, where I want to do something that no one else is doing. And that's when I decided to teach people like how to start as a freelancer. So a lot of people will tell you, yes, how to make money, how to go from 1K to 5K a month, how to go from 5K to 10K a month. But I wanted to teach something like, what is an invoice? How do you send a proposal? What is a contract? And I think because I saw this large gap between what is freelancing versus, okay, I'm already making some money, how to make more. So I wanted to fill that gap, which looking back is what I did. But at the time it was just, okay, let's create content. I like creating. There's an Instagram page, let's create one, and then let's see what happens. So that's how I got into teaching freelancing as such, and it just expanded over time, I guess.
That's wonderful because what I even found really interesting about, like how you mentioned, like there are so many micro steps that sort of compound to your being as a freelancer. There are so many parts that people try to skip. Like everybody wants to give a get quick rich scheme on Instagram, like how can you double your income in like 21 days, or everybody wants to project this sort of facade in front of people, and for somebody who's taken the patient route of sort of explaining people the micro steps, what I want to really know about you starting about going about teaching people about how freelancing works. How long were you a freelancer before that, and what were the experiences that you sort of amassed? And what I mean, of course you saw a market gap, right? Like you're saying that there are people who are not talking about the micro steps, which is very evident in your content, right? But how long were you a freelancer? What were the jobs, roles and responsibilities that you sort of donned as a freelancer, and what was the experiences that sort of was an instigating factor for you to become a freelance educator in the first place?
Okay, so the first post that I put on LinkedIn was 3 years ago. It went viral. It had over 1.5 million views. And because of that post, I got a lot of messages from people saying they wanted me to write for them. That's how I started freelancing. This was 3 years ago. And almost as soon as I started freelancing, I started talking about it. Like normally how, if you would look at any other creator in any other space that is not freelancing, they would call it documenting their journey. They would probably do it as a vlog, as a podcast, as a just, okay, I'm posting one post on Instagram every single day. You could say the same thing, but I was doing it on LinkedIn. Because
in text format, like you said, in text format.
Because that was the space where I was getting work. It wasn't as much of documentation as it was, okay, this is where my freelancing career is built. So that's how I started freelancing, because people started approaching me. That's how I started. I never thought I wanted to be a freelancer at that point. And once I started creating content, I started talking about, okay, this happened today. And
it's interesting you mentioned that, because I was reading this book by Gary Vee. It's called Crushing It, which is about personal branding. And he was also talking about the fact that when you start out, it's not important to sort of, emphasize on any expertise. It's about documenting your journey, showing the human side to what you're doing. So was it like that for you when you started your journey as a freelancing educator on LinkedIn?
Yeah, totally. I didn't have experience, right? Like as I said, I started out 3 years ago. I had experience through internships. I knew how to write content. I knew how to write for others. That much I knew. I didn't really do it independently though. Internships means you're working with agencies, clients. Right. You don't have to look for clients, pitch your offer. No. But so when I was documenting, when I was just sharing stories, I realized that a lot of people were shocked that I was charging in advance, which means that I was getting paid before I started doing the work. Shocked means shocked. And now it has become normal because I talked a lot about it. It's become pretty mainstream on LinkedIn. But at the time, 3 years ago, it was a huge deal. How is she doing that? And that's when I realized, okay, this is a huge thing. Do people really not work without, do people really, end up just not getting paid because they're not even charging in advance? And that's when I realized, okay, this is something pretty messed up. This has to be sorted. And that's when I started talking more about what I do and how I deal with clients. So that's how I got into, okay, then again, as I said, people messaged me and okay, I was like, okay, there is a gap. People need more clarity. And I found Instagram to be a better space because LinkedIn is my space to find clients. It's a space where I'm pitching my service. These are high end offer services. So Instagram felt like a better space. It's more visual. It has more IG stories. It has lives. I can do Q&As. I can just interact more with all the DMs. Instagram has a better DM feature as well, by the way. So all of that, it just made sense to shift my platform to do something else there. And that's basically how I got into this. Not a lot of experience, but just experience with a lot of people. I ended up working with like over 100 people in my first year. So just lots of vivid experiences. So that kind of, that way I had a lot of experience, not in terms of years.
Right. I'd heard Tanmay but talking about this to Ranveer Alabadia in his podcast, where you were saying that it's not about the years of experience, it's about the experiences a year. And I think that's what I'm sort of able to gauge with the situation. But that sort of brings me to like two questions I have for you. One, that you said that your principles, one of your core principles was to sort of charge in advance, right? When you were working. How did you sort of come to this conclusion that I have to do that and this is how I have to establish myself as a freelancer? And A, for one, also tell other people that this is how you're supposed to go about it. What was like the epiphany for you to sort of come to this conclusion as your approach?
It just, for me, actually, it seemed like common sense. I mean, if somebody gets the work, why would they pay me after that? Why would anybody say, okay, I've taken something from you, now let me just, pay your money? It doesn't happen. And I've seen that, my dad has his own business. I've seen how he ends up, staying on calls, like, get the invoice cleared, get the invoice paid, when is it coming? So I've seen that. I know people don't pay. If they have the stuff, they won't pay. You have, of course, I mean, there's always people who are good. There's always people who keep their word. They're honest. They pay. But those are also the people who don't mind paying in advance. So I started out with charging 50% advance. I felt like that was fair. Now I charge 100% advance. So I started out with 50 and then 50 upon completion of the project. That also ended up having some issues because people paid the 50%, but then they didn't pay the 50% balance. Or because when they're renewing, they realize that, okay, you have to pay 50% from the last month, 50% for the next month, which means you still have to pay 100% amount. People are not ready for that. People are not mentally prepared for that, which means the work slows down. They tell you, okay, start, I'll pay. It doesn't come through. So then I transitioned into, okay, 100% or nothing, that way. So that's how I work right now. I was surprised by how shocked people. There's a chant. Everyone is saying no one pays.
I was shocked
if you see on LinkedIn.
I was shocked when I saw one of your Q&As. I was like, what is this happening?
Now if you see, everyone's telling you to charge in advance. Everyone's saying that you should not work without charging in advance. So I'm glad it ended up that way. So I just think I talked about it enough. People were shocked and people were like, okay, let me try. Okay, I say that all of these people are saying nobody pays in advance. I've never asked in advance. You've never asked, okay, pay me 50% advance. That's why no one's paying you. So once people started doing that, they realized, okay. That's how people started, adopting the practice.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned 100% advance because people are working in 100% exposure. So
that's more of an Instagram thing, honestly. That's more of an Instagram thing. Everyone on Instagram is like, we'll give you exposure. And I'm like, okay, then why do you need me? If you have the exposure,
Yeah.
use that. Why do you need me to bring more for you? So
Exposure.
that's a bit weird.
It's good that you mentioned like your father being an entrepreneur and being into business, because I always look at freelancing as a sort of middle ground between business and being an artist. I look at it as an intersection in most cases for a person living life on their own terms. And I think Gary Vee also calls it crashing it. Or I mean, I don't know, like there are all these terminologies, right? Uh, how much of an artist are you, and how much of a business person are you when you are operating as a freelancer? I'm sure that, of course, if you're looking at it as 100% advance payment, I'm sure that you get these projects once in a while where you have like your own interest, like your artistic inclinations sort of pointed towards it, and you're like, hey, I could possibly do something with this, or I could charge less, or I could understand the situation. Has that been the case for you now, even when you are at this level where you are dictating terms to other people?
I have written content for like way too much negotiation. Like, I've written web copy for like, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 rupees. I don't know why I did that. And this was like, I was 1 year into freelancing. It wasn't like I was a complete newbie. I had worked with a lot of people. But I ended up doing that somehow. Let's not talk about how that happened, but it happened. So things happen. And it wasn't something I was keen on. It wasn't a mind-blowing project. It wasn't life-changing, but I ended up doing it because, well, sometimes things happen. So in that sense, I have done negotiated work. But in terms of like this artistic thing, I think when it comes to freelancing at this point, I'm 100% business person, because that's how I have to see it. In fact, I wouldn't even call myself a freelancer now. I'm an agency owner. I run an agency. There's a team of people I work with. There's different kind of services we provide, and it has to be from a business mindset, because it's something that's scalable, something that has to grow much more than it has so far. So in that sense, business definitely, but I think the artistic or that interesting inclination comes when I get somebody that I'm really excited to work with. So there are a few people I'm working with now who are actually stars on various platforms. They're really good at what they do. They're into all these coaching, consulting, fitness, online business, all of these topics that I am very excited about. So I really like interacting with such people. They have very intelligent content, really witty. So just being in that kind of space, being in that kind of network with them, that's something I really enjoy. So I guess that's where I would say that interest and that excitement for work comes from.
I don't know. I have a kind of a follow-up question with based on both the answers, like this one and the previous one, where you were saying people freelancers should ask for advance payment, right? So what I wanted to understand is like the freelancers, especially the ones who have just like given it a thought that they are going to now do freelancing work. They are really new, like the very initial phase. They have not got any kind of work right now. They are looking for clients, and uh, now that you have talked about like asking in advance, how does someone tackle a client at that point of time, right? When you have literally nothing to like showcase that I've worked for this or worked for that, and still you are saying that I need something in advance so that I can work on this and then the rest. So how do you like what's your advice to tackle that?
So the first thing here is having samples. So even if you've not worked for other people, just have something that shows that I know what I'm doing. For example, as I said, people started reaching out to me based on just my LinkedIn posts. They didn't ask me for samples. If they did, I would just send them my best performing LinkedIn posts. Like, look, I'm a good writer. I can do the job for you. So one of the first things is create something that shows that you are good at what you do, not that you work with other people. And the second thing is charging in advance. It takes some confidence. It takes some time. And even once you start working with people, you do a good work, then you realize, okay, this is something I deserve to be paid for. This is something that I've worked hard for. I've earned my money. Then you want to charge in advance, you can do that. So if you're not comfortable with it in the beginning, you can charge, let's say 25 to 30%. I say at least 30%, charge that much. If you're not comfortable, it's okay. Charge later.
But no, where you were heading with the answer was also really interesting, because I think 25 to 30% is anyways. I think the people who are you working with also sort of understand that you command this, and the whole interpersonal dynamic also changes. Like I think they respect you more. They understand that this person is just not too work hungry. I mean, hunger for work is one thing, but you can't do it at the expense of just putting yourself out there for pennies. I mean, you have to really understand that you are also bringing something to the table, and both the parties need each other for something. So I think that is something which is I have seen that in the kind of professionalism that you're exuding. I think that is something that I've seen it. Like, I think there's a hierarchy in terms of like freelancers as well, right? I think you are somebody who's like knows their stuff, right? I think like being from like the freelance filmmaking sort of side, I've seen that the people who sort of work for corporate films or like wedding projects, they have this sort of thing because they are in abundance of work and they are actually saying no to work rather than seeking work because they worked at this level that people are approaching them rather than them actively chasing work, right? So how do you sort of derive this sense of security as a freelancer where you are saying no to people who could sometimes be good clients, but just because of you sticking with your guns, sticking to your ethics, have you ever had such experiences where you were like, maybe I could have, or you're too sure about the fact that work is going to come to you because of the quality you're providing?
I'm pretty sure. Money negotiation is one aspect, but actually negotiation, people don't realize it, but it's hidden in many different ways. People want you to do, some extra work for the same cost. People want you to take on a call every month and, 1 hour, 90-minute call, like every single week, every month. It's too much. They want you to submit a 3-week project in 1 week. It's too much. So even that kind of expectations is something that I have to keep in mind, is something whether I can do or not. But just in terms of, when I say no to somebody, I usually consider all these aspects. It's not just the money part, but just the kind of vibe they have, the way they ask for the discount, the kind of promises they make. Oh, we'll increase based on performance. That's a lie. That's not going to happen. There's no performance here. There's value, there's work. There's no performance. So all of that is a lie. And I know, okay, somebody who uses the word performance is not somebody I would want to work with. Straight up. So these are things that I have realized over time by talking to hundreds and thousands of people and realizing that, okay, this is a red flag, just like big red flag. I always make sure that I'm leaving the doors open. So I am not putting them down like, how dare you negotiate. I'm not saying that. I always say that, okay, I can't pick up the project right now, but if you ever talk back in a few months. So I think that's also important, where, okay, there's some people who are just 10% of what you've quoted, you would never work with them. But if it's a minor negotiation, minor back and forth, it's something you want to leave doors open to, so that there's the potential of working together. So so that's something I would advise, that don't be too harsh, be rigid, be stern, be stubborn about the way you work, but don't be harsh with the people you say no to. Just leave doors open.
I mean, you can always politely decline rather than just being rude about it. Right? You don't need to slam the door.
Or writing a LinkedIn post about it. You don't have to write a LinkedIn post and tag them saying, they pay me $1 when I quoted $10. Just be respectful, keep it private, and just keep it to yourself.
No, absolutely. I think that comes from a strong sense of ethics. And you were talking about not being rigid and just being nice to people in general, which I think is a very important attitude to any person, not even a freelancer, any person in general, because as we are seeing, people have become too self-centered and people just want their own thing, so they'll just be nice to you until their work is getting done. And so tell me about this. What I can sense from like your answers is also a lot of mental clarity, and I sort of see a correlation between this of you working constantly because you are already doing, so you have a lot of practical examples of how to sort of go about things, so you are very certain about how you look at things and all, and also the fact that you do these constant Q&As, let alone from the freelance content that you're making via reels and others, LinkedIn and all, has the sort of constantly reiterating your values on Q&As redirected you to this mental clarity where you are very certain about your ethics and your principles? And has that helped you also? Has that sort of reminded you at times where because we are human, right? It's sometimes just slip away from our own core ethics and, can get swayed away by the greed or like us leveling up to a certain thing. So we are like, no, this is not what I do now or something like that. So how do you keep yourself centered and grounded with so much of work happening on the sides, your education, and you already working? How do you keep yourself sane with your core beliefs?
Your beliefs is what you have and who you are. So it's not like I am trying to hold on to the beliefs, but it's the beliefs that are making me who I am. I would see it as the other way around, right? Like I'm not Shreya without sticking to what I'm supposed to stick to, what means the most to me. So in that sense, I mean, the thing about, I think there was a lot of different topics involved in that question. So the thing about mental clarity is it does come a lot with writing. For me especially, it comes a lot with writing. So especially when I do Q&As, I've been doing them for a few months, like 3 times a week, lots of questions, like 100 questions each time, and I write the answers to them in my IG stories. So what that does is it gives me a lot of mental clarity because I have to think and I have to write. When I'm writing again, for me it's a process of just clarifying what everything that I have muddled in my head. So yes, in that sense, Q&As definitely provide me mental clarity, because it's written, it's there, it's sealed, it's not just floating in my head. So yeah, that is definitely one of those things. And in terms of just managing everything, like education, I completed that this year, but until then it was like I don't have a choice. Either I give my exams and I do the work, or I don't give my exams, which is not an option, or I don't do the client work, which is also not an option, because they've paid me, I'm working with them. The best way is just, again, to be true to what kind of work ethics you have. And for me, it's always been, if I have exams coming up, if I have something important coming up, if I'm going for a trip, I'm going to tell my clients at least 2 or 3 weeks in advance that, okay, this week it's going to be a bit up and down, I'm probably not going to be around, but I'll get everything done in advance. So absolutely. Just have that kind of ethics, in the sense that it's less stress for me as well, right? It's one thing that, okay, my client may not need me at that time, but it's less stress for me, because, okay, I've done my job. From my side, it's clear that I'm not around for those few days. And it's a professional, it's a kind of professionalism that makes your client feel like, okay, yeah, this person is serious about the work, this person is up to date with everything that's going on. And I think it's these small things, like writing every day, or just being clear, communicating clearly, that helps you get that kind of mental clarity of where you're headed and what you're doing. So absolutely. I think that's a bit important, that a lot of people miss out on, but you need to consider all of this stuff while you're freelancing.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with the writing aspect of, mental clarity, because I've experienced that firsthand, and I completely understand. And I think for you, who's somebody who's also, venturing into content writing, copywriting, and those things, you're always like, your mode of channelizing and expressing yourself is writing, right? So absolutely. So tell me about this. You mentioned the education part of it, which is something that I found really interesting, because you have, if I may know, what degree were you doing in Dublin?
English Literature and Philosophy, bachelor's.
So I hope you're not one of those grammar Nazi friends, right? Like, it's not this is not how you spell it. But no. So
that's an interesting point. Hold on. That's an interesting point, because I made a reel about this once. Reels came up, I think this time last year. I made a reel about this grammar Nazi thing. Okay, that if somebody corrects, somebody's grammar, they're labeled as a grammar Nazi. Whereas if you do maths wrong, if you make, if you write 2 + 2 is 5, I'm going to correct you. I'm going to say it's 4, and you don't call me a math Nazi. You're not. It's about everyone hates grammar Nazi. Like, people hate grammar corrections as well. So just put out a reel about this. What is this hypocrisy? We need to normalize correcting people's grammar. Not in the sense that you go out and you correct everybody's grammar, but if my friends and my family make a mistake, I'm telling them, and they're okay with it, because they know they made a mistake. It's a mistake, although you want to look over it. That reel had 1.5 million views.
So wow, okay.
People were very enthusiastic about grammar Nazis. So this is a very important topic. I'm always going to correct people's grammar if I know them well, if I know that they're comfortable with it. I think it's important. It's like correcting math. There is a right and wrong. So I don't see why not.
But I think that's like your proofreading side, which comes into the thing. Like, when you even write content, you want to sort of ensure. But no, you're completely right about that. I didn't mean that. What I meant is like the obnoxious ones, like who really make it to point to sort of let someone down. Like, hey, you spelled that wrong. This is not how you do it. So no, I totally agree. Absolutely, that's really important. But maths miscalculations could lead to the world ending. So we have to be really careful about
that. There's a lot of comments like that on there. There's a lot of comments like that in the reels. So
no, absolutely, it does make sense. So what that sort of brings me to what I was meaning to ask you is that you've done your education in English literature, and of course there might be this sort of temptation to, hey, I could get a desk job and things would be way simpler, because initially when you're even establishing the whole point of freelancing is to sort of have these work hours where you can live life on your own terms and work for some time, rest for some time, work for some time, rest for some time. I think Naval Ravikant calls this the marathon of sprints. He says in his podcast, there's an excerpt, it's called Work as Hard as You Can. So he says that impatience with actions, patience with results, right? So he was talking about, like, we as humans are supposed to be like lions. We just can't keep grazing the grass all the time. We have to work, hunt, come back, rest. And I think that's the case for you, because you'll burn out, right? I mean, we are human at the end of the day. We can take up work, but if we are not able to meet the deadlines, and we are overwhelmed, so there's no point to it, right? So the question that I want to sort of ask you is that, of course, there might have been the temptation to sort of, I've done a degree from a well-to-do college, let alone out of India, right? Like, I could get a very good job for myself. It could be in any capacity, right? And you still sort of, held your ground with the fact that I want to pursue a freelancing career, and so I want to go about it. So what are the sort of ideal work hours that I'm sure that now you run an agency, you're just not like a freelancer. I mean, no offense to the freelancers. I mean, I'm just saying that you work hard, you put in the work, so you've reached that status where you have an agency, and even if you want to take a week off or 2 weeks off, you can take it off because you'll have other people who can you can delegate that work to, right? So what is your ideal work hours like once, like, as you're working your way up and you're moving forward a year down the line or 2 years down the line, how many hours you want to work in a day? Because it's something which is really fascinates me, because people think that you become a freelancer and there's no work to it. There could be you could be working 16 hours a day or 10 hours a day, and it could just feel endless, right? So what is the sort of ideal sort of workflow that you look at yourself being in a year or 2 years down the line?
So in terms of delegation or outsourcing, I started that last year in January. So I have, although it wasn't an agency at that point, I had started delegating this. I started working with people. Even at this point, it's not a full-time delegation. It's not something that I can, you take care, I'm going. I can't really do that yet. I'm not at that point yet.
Absolutely.
So I would say ideally, like, my work hours are 4 to 5 hours a day. That includes, like, let's say some content creation as well, doing something like this, taking up calls, submitting client work, back and forth, things like that. And generally, I'm available over WhatsApp for my clients. If they need anything, they can text me. I'll get back as soon as possible.
Yeah.
That's how my week usually looks like. It's 5 hours a day. I take the weekends off. This is something I started recently because, especially since the pandemic started. Otherwise, I used to work after college. Again, it was still 4 hours a week, but I used to, come back from college at 10 p.m., work from like 11 to 3, go back to college in the morning at 8. It was that kind of routine. But now it's a more stable, more wake up when you want and work when you can. That kind of stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, I like that kind of But last week was like a full 9 to 5 job because I was working like 10 hours a day for the full week. I was booked with calls. I was sick the previous week, so I couldn't really get things done. So 10 hours a day for like 5 days. It was quite rough. So yeah, there's ups and downs, and that's like a one-off thing that will happen. But otherwise, it's usually 4 to 5 hours a day. And the way I see it in the future is I see myself working more because this is one of the many things I want to do. I see it expanding into various different things, and of course that would require more time. So I don't see myself as working less. I see myself as working on different things, which again I think freelancing gives me the freedom to do. I can do what I want as long as I can continue to manage this side of my life.
So tell me about this, like straight up, like we are like new freelancers, we don't know anything. And with all these sort of knowledge of amassed and like the updated reiterations of like your core beliefs, like this is what I used to think, now this is what I feel, and no, this was wrong, no, but my first initial approach was right. For Parth and I, who are completely new freelancers, who probably just want to foray into and this is not like a free consultation. This guy is very sly. He's said it's a free consultation. But I don't know. So like with your experience, like some things that you'll really tell people to sort of go about, and you think that if you would have learned early, it would have been much easier for you.
Okay. First thing is always find your first client, like ASAP. You don't want to think about upskilling. You cannot be perfect at any skill. You can't find the best outreach method. You can't find the best platform. The only thing you can do is work with one person. Again, why? Because it gives you an idea how much to charge in advance. You become confident that you can do the work well. You get experience of dealing with people, because to find one client, you'll probably have to speak with like at least 5 other people. So you get experience in dealing with people. So all of this that I said, all of the information that I gave on my Instagram, my LinkedIn, when you really are in that position to apply it, you will realize how different the world works and how different you have to approach freelancing. You can't just take my advice and put it everywhere. It's not how it works. You have to. It has to be a personal process to you. First thing is find a client somehow. And the second thing, since you mentioned it's not a free consultation, I'm going to also talk about my ebook, because I think that is
please do.
Yeah, please.
I think that is the thing to go to. It just came out last week, and the reason I'm recommending this, it's not whatever, you buy it if you want to, but the reason I'm recommending this is that this ebook is like the ultimate ebook for starting out freelancing, because as I said, nobody talks about how to create a proposal, how to create an invoice, how to create contracts. In this ebook, I have a chapter on what is freelancing. Why did I start freelancing? Nobody talks about that. So in that ebook, I show you like how to go from, I don't even know what to freelance and I don't probably know what freelancing means, to finding your first client in 10 days. That's the ebook. What is it called? It's called Freelancing Freedom.
Guys, Freelancing Freedom, you got a 50% promo code. Press the promo code.
I can give a promo code.
Yes. Okay,
I can give.
Yes. No. But we're going to link it. We're going to link it.
Yeah,
Either
we'll
way,
do
we're going to
it.
link it because
Uh-huh.
we would want Shreya also to sort of gain something out of this. But absolutely. So
One more thing that I wanted to actually point out is with respect to the answer that you gave, is it also like there can be certain policies or there can be certain things or principles or guidelines you can say, but is it also like it? You said that it can depend on person to person how they want to
Yeah.
apply it. Plus, also, is it also like based on client to client what you want to do, and do you
Oh,
think
yeah.
it can change or it should change rather?
Yeah, it can. Certain things can. Like, see, one of the things I'm very strict about is charging in advance. That's non-negotiable.
Right.
One of the new clients I'm working with is somebody I can definitely trust. We have like a call every week. The work is going great, and they pay the first invoice in time. So I'm on board with the second project with them already, and it's okay that they said they'll pay in a few days. I trust them. So yeah,
Right.
you can be a bit flexible based on how you want to maintain the relationship with your client. Don't wait like forever. Don't wait for 50% of the project to end. If you think, okay, something's wrong, stop and tell them they need to pay first. But yeah, it's one of the ways of maintaining a relationship, showing that you trust the other person.
absolutely.
And one more thing I talk about is not doing free samples. So I don't write free personal samples. You can check my portfolio. You can pay me for a sample. I don't write free samples.
Yeah.
I wrote one last week because it's a huge opportunity. It's something that is potentially life changing for me. So that's a one-off thing I would do. I've not done that in the past 2 years, but I've done it now, just last week because it is a big opportunity. So yeah, you have to be flexible based on like client-to-client basis, what you are comfortable with. Sometimes clients are in a position that they're intimidating. Honestly, when you're starting out, they're intimidating to you. They're not intimidating, like they're not doing that on purpose, but you may feel, okay, they're at a position where I need to be a bit careful.
Okay.
It's okay. Just, whatever feels comfortable starting out, and then you can define and, then you can decide, okay, this is something non-negotiable. This is something that I can probably work around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful that you mentioned that. And so what I even want to sort of come towards is that, the whole compounding aspect of it. Like I'm really fascinated by the term compounding because as a freelancer, you have to be physically present for whatever you're doing, right? With the, with video content creation and having an ebook and having things that, make money while you sleep, which is sounds very, fascinating and sensationalizing for people, like make money while you sleep. But there's a lot of work that goes into it, right? Marketing that thing that could make money. Like, of course, I mean, you would understand that better. But so tell me about this, having sort of come to that place where you can command that sort of, income flow for yourself, where you could have videos that could perform, like you said, could reach 1 million views on Instagram, could help you get followers. Those followers could be your paid clients via LinkedIn or whatever, or you putting your ebook, which could sort of make money even if you don't put out content for a week or if you or a month, and if you just don't do anything, but that ebook will automatically keep amassing, money for you. How much of that is something that you want to sort of work towards, and how much or does that sort of constitute of your larger motives as a freelancer or like an educator or even an agency moving forward? Is that something that you're working towards? Of course, you're getting the fruits of, like, as you're moving forward, of course. But has that been empowering to you as a content creator and somebody who's made stuff like this?
Totally, absolutely. So like, I wouldn't say it's passive income. Like none of this is passive income, not even ebooks. So the third ebook, the Freelancing Freedom, it actually came out on the 16th, on the 17th, which was last weekend. Last weekend. And the pre-sale was on my birthday, which was the 4th of July. And so pre-sale means people can already start paying and order it, but they'll get it on the day of the release, which was the 17th. That ebook, I promoted it like crazy. Like I was online on Instagram all day. I made 150 sales in 6 hours.
Wow.
150 on Instagram.
Damn.
And that happened, like you can say it's passive income. It's one ebook.
No.
I spent the whole day pushing that out. I had a marketing strategy in mind. Every time a copy was sold, I was posting that, okay, there's only 100 copies left. At this rate, there's only 50 copies left, only 20 copies left. Last copy left, then the rate goes up. I spent the whole day doing that. That's why I made 150 sales. And when I think about that, so at this point, that ebook has over like 500 sales. And I was just talking to my dad the other day that sales is one thing, that income side is one thing, it's passive is one thing. But something that's really fun to think about is that ebook is teaching people how to do things my way. It's
Yeah.
teaching people how to charge in advance. It's teaching people how to not write free samples. It's teaching people how to pitch confidently. And just imagining the idea that, okay, 500 people bought that book. Let's say 300 people read it and apply it. That's 300 people now charging in advance in a freelancing community, and which until 3 years ago was shocked at the idea of charging in advance.
Yeah.
So I just like that kind of thought that, okay, this is not just about me creating an ebook. It's about changing how freelancing works. Because potentially it's going to do that. If more and more people buy it, more and more people read it, they realize I can charge in advance. They realize I don't have to work for as much as the client is quoting. I can decide how much I want to charge. So in that sense, I see the bigger picture, and that's where definitely I see myself heading, where it's something on a larger scale, something that's beyond my gain, and something that's changing how freelancing works. So yeah, that's the ultimate big picture.
It's good that you mentioned the bigger picture, because that sort of signifies a long-term approach, right? For somebody who's started with LinkedIn, who's made reels, and let alone in a world where the attention spans are so low, I mean, decreasing by the speed of light, and you put a book out, right? I mean, of course, the people who want to gauge the information will always gauge it, right? People want you always have an audience for fast food and an audience for like a five course cuisine meal in like a proper restaurant. So how much of that sort of brings me to the thing, like, you are influencing people via your work on like Instagram. Who are the people who've influenced you? Like, you say that you want people to sort of start charging in advance. There's going to be like a ripple effect of it. There's going to be a domino effect, right? Like people, like you were saying, that people who used to be shocked by it and now claiming to be the people pioneers of charging charging in advance. Who are the people who've influenced you? Because there are a lot of really good international, I think there's Chris Du I came across, and then there's I'm forgetting another gentleman. So who are the people who influence you to sort of take this route as a freelance educator?
So when I was interning, this was after high school, so a few years ago. When I was interning, this was like the first time I was writing copy, creating content. Before that, it was all like, my personal writing, poems, essays, stuff like that. So when I started doing this, I realized what copywriting is. And one day I was just, I just Googled, okay, copywriting. And the first thing that came up was how I made 6 figures this year through copywriting, how I made 6 figures a month through copywriting, right? And these were all really good copywriters, not denying that. Of course, it creates an illusion that they had it easy, but they worked hard. Their copy was really top notch. And I didn't have any specific person, but I just kept reading all of these people's articles, just seeing what are they doing. Okay, they're making money, but how? What are you doing exactly? I was trying to figure that out, never found out, but I was trying to figure that out. So one of the person that I really liked, the website that I was really happy with, was Tej Dosa. So he has a really good website. He had a lot of things I knew at 18 lessons for 18-year-olds and stuff like that. That's really crisp, really broken down. I really liked his content. But again, I didn't quite understand what copywriting, content writing is. Then a few months later, I ended up, starting freelancing. And again, now when I look back, I see, okay, that in a sense, that was somebody who influenced me. Okay, you should look into what copywriting is. But I have never had any direct influence. Somebody saying, okay, you need to charge in advance, you need to do this, you need to do that. Not really. It's just something I did, I tried, I figured out, which is why I made a lot of, I've had a lot of bad experiences, especially the first year, because everything was experimental. And in general, my parents have been very involved in how I run my freelancing or how I run my business. They read all of my content, they watch all of my interviews.
That's wonderful.
If I have any lives, they're always sitting and watching, no matter what time zone I'm in. No matter how late it is for them. So they're very involved in how I work. So, and they're both, my parents, they have that business inclination. They know how to deal with people, work with people, charge, convey value. So the most help I've gotten is from them. So I have a bad experience, I call them, and then they're like, okay, this is not how you should have done it. You should have done it like this. And the best part is, because they know me, they know how my brain works, how my emotions work. They can give me the best advice. Somebody out there might give me, okay, you need to charge in advance, it won't work. But when they say charge in advance if you want, and then you'll figure out over time that you should have done that from the get-go. That's all because they know me. So I would say, like, they are the main they're the main help or influence that I've had in running my freelancing career. And just last year, then I found some really good people. Like Jose Rosado is one of the coaches that I really like.
Okay.
I had purchased one of his courses actually. And I just messaged him saying that, I really love this course, and we just talked for a bit. He ended up hiring me for something. He liked the service I provided. And based on that, he was like, you do good work. And he just, I want to be your mentor, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So that's how I
Oh.
ended up, in conversation with him. And he's really supportive. Like, he just texts me if he thinks I'm lost, and he's just like, hey, is everything okay? And and I know I can reach out to him. We just help each other a lot in whatever it may be, like content creation, business, So yeah, I think I never had somebody in the beginning except my parents, but now it's more open once I start becoming visible, I think.
No, I think you're pretty visible.
It's new. It's still new.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, there was a gentleman who came on our podcast and he said this one quote, which is really, he's a very good indie musician from our country. His name is Ashwin Advani. So he said that I've not come this far to only come this far. And I sort of could sense that when you said that, because I think, you have to, I mean, everything is a milestone, right? You have to enjoy the process. You have to enjoy the journey. Even James Clear in Atomic Habits speaks about, I mean, goals are one thing, but goals can't dictate your life. If you just, it's about systems, right? It's about having the right kind of approach on a constant basis. So tell me about this, like what I could sort of derive from what you spoke about, not to sort of get towards the bad experiences you had as a freelancer, but what you learned from them.
It's actually very difficult to like pinpoint, because I've had so many experiences. I've had clients who, again, simple stuff, clients who've not paid me, clients who said they'll pay me, they don't pay me, clients who said, oh, the check went out and then it never came, or I sent the email, I sent the invoice, but it never came through. That kind of stuff. I think there have been a few incidents which were like very heartbreaking as such, because not that they were that bad, but at the time I was new and they affected me way too much. So I think one was right in the beginning of my career. I mean, I think I was 6 months in probably. And at the time, this prospect was good. Like when we started about the deal, it was all good. We closed a 6-month contract right from the get-go.
Okay.
And it was like on a monthly basis, but it was a 6-month contract. And I think we were like 1 week into the work, and then suddenly at like 11 p.m., I was at home at that time with my family. And at 11 p.m., I get a message like, you're cheating us. Nobody asked for their, byline in articles. You're asking for your name to be there. Everyone just gives the article. We are supposed to have our company name. And at the time in my contract, I had both the options. I had an option for a byline and a ghostwriting. Ghostwriting means that the client can pretend it's the client's work. I got this message, and then I was like, oh no, what's going on? Like, what have I done? Am I a fraud? Am I a cheat? What have I done? And then they're like, nobody said that. I spoke to my partner. My partner spoke to another writer. They say you're cheating us. And I was in a bit of a mess that day. I was crying because I didn't understand what to do. I was young. I mean, it was still 3 years ago, and I was so lost. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I think, and I was just in, like, it was over text, and I was like, till 1 or 2 in the night, I was just like, this is not helping, this is not good. And again, parents, so I had to talk to them and be like, they're like, no, it's fine, it's your contract, you decided, you set your terms, it's all good. And then I just refunded that person's money. I'm like, bye, let's not talk about this anymore. Again, that advice was something I got from my parents, because they know me. They know there are certain things I can handle. There are certain things at that point that I cannot handle. And they know that there are certain kinds of people that I should not deal with at all. It's a what do you call that? It's quicksand. It's just going to drag you in constantly. So based on their advice, I refunded the money, and I was like, bye. And that instantly got me mental peace. But just thinking of keeping that in mind, the next thing I did was I increased my charges, because that seemed like a good deal. But I realized that, okay, anybody who's paying me within this rate will always have certain different kinds of expectations. I raised my charges. I made my contract more clear. I updated some terms and conditions. I was very clear that this is ghostwriting, or this is with my byline. If you want ghostwriting, that's a separate service. So all of that came with this one bad experience, and I stopped checking my phone after like 10-11 p.m. If the client is from the same time zone, then I don't respond to them after a certain time. So yeah, all of that was through this one experience. Looking back, it's not a big deal now. I wouldn't care about it. But yeah, when I was starting out, it was like my career is over, I'm a fraud. It was bad. But yeah, you learn.
Kudos to you though. I mean, that's a situation
absolutely.
people can like back off and not do anything about it.
Yeah, it at the time it felt like just leave everything and go and sit in a corner of the world. But yeah, Again, my parents, I would just say that they had to scold me and say, stop crying. Why are you crying over something like this? And I think that's what, put me back. Okay, why am I crying over this?
But I've realized that the best I even came across like a meme or something, like the people who are paying you in a certain sort of category will ask you like 20,000 questions, but the people who are actually paying you way more will be the most people who clear the payment the quickest, and they'll not have any questions and they'll trust you the most. And I think that's how it works, right? But I think, to even have empathy for the other side, sometimes there's a lot of miscommunication. Not to take your example, because I think you're a very effective communicator, but I think for the people, sometimes they are shy or they're introverted. And I mean, not to throw shade on introverted people, they probably sometimes are not able to sort of convey what they mean and what they feel. And some sort of complacency. I think that's why contract is very important, because even pertaining to a podcast, we actually had to get in touch with like an IP lawyer, like an intellectual property lawyer for certain things. So I think it's very important that creators or freelancers empower themselves with like the laws of how things go about. You need to have those things sorted. Which sort of even the question that I was meaning to ask you before, after the one that I asked you previously, is that I mean, of course, like you have off days, right? You can't. I mean, it's human, right? You are not feeling like working. You're burnt out, or it could just be anything. Sometimes the worst feeling is when you don't even understand why you're like low. Like how do you sort of like when you have like deadlines and like people are like you are accountable to people in terms of work or your team also, or just be your own goals or your own missions, and you're not feeling like working, and you have a deadline. How do you sort of go about a time like?
So there's a lot of different ways to handle something like this. So one example is like when I fell sick a few days back. The easiest thing I could do, I was genuinely sick. It wasn't something that I don't want to work. I'm drained out, not that way, but I was sick, and I couldn't work at all. So I just instantly messaged all of the clients that I had to submit the work for, saying I need a few days, and everyone's fine. Especially now, I think people are more compassionate towards if you're sick, you need time to rest. That's fine. So I had no problem with that. That's the first thing. If you think you can't do something, ask for an extension. Most people are happy to give it to you. If they can't give you an extension, then you'll have to figure out, do you want to get it done by someone else? Do you want to drop the project? How do you want to make up? That's up to you. But the other thing of being drained out, feeling like you don't want to work, I think that's the kind of flexibility you cannot give yourself when you're a freelancer, although you want to. As a freelancer, you'll always be told that you can work when you want to, you can do what kind of work you want to, you can decide how much you want to work. That's not true, because you can be passionate about writing, you can be passionate about content creation, but at the end of the day, it's work. It's something that you've committed to. Now, if you had a job, you wouldn't take a break saying I'm drained out. If you want to take a break, you'll take it on your day off. Like, of course, I mean, if you're absolutely drained out, you need to fix something, you need a break. But if I don't feel like working today, you can't really do that. That's a luxury you should not give yourself when you're a freelancer. You should not. So that's one of the things that, it doesn't matter how you feel. You have to get stuff done, because that's your commitment to yourself and to the client and to the work you're doing. It's not fun. It's not always passion and, enjoyment and interest. Sometimes it's work, and you have to deal with it. But if you're like, if this whole draining out thing, that feeling that I absolutely cannot work, if that happens, you cannot do it, you cannot move, you need a break. And if this happens constantly, regularly, you need to fix something, because being drained out is not something that's normal. It shouldn't happen in the first place. Especially when you're a freelancer, you are in control of your time. So I would say the simplest thing to do is sleep on time. Like, super important thing. Sleep on time or sleep enough. A lot of times I sleep late. I sleep like at 2 a.m. but I sleep until 10. I get that 8-9 hours of sleep, which is very helpful for me. So sleep on time, drink water, eat food, don't eat junk food, eat like real good food 3 times a day. Work out, move, go out for a walk, do something. Because again, something that helped me, I can be like the most tired at the end of the day, but if I want to go to the gym, I will go to the gym, because that's my space of relief. So do something and take your weekends off. Don't take on too many clients, or increase your rates so that you can make the same amount of money but with fewer clients. So there's a lot of ways to navigate yourself out of being burnt out for at least the next few weeks or next few months. So I would say you have to look at this from the whole approach, that if you cannot work, tell your client first. If you don't want to work, well, work anyway, it's still work. And if it's just something that's happening again and again, fix something, because something's wrong and it needs fixing. That's how I would recommend dealing with like burnouts.
Absolutely. Like what I really found interesting is that I was actually about to ask you the next question and you answered it yourself. So that's wonderful. Like I was going to ask you, like, how do you sort of, what are your practices to sort of keep that productivity in check? And I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's as simple as that. I mean, of course, like you 80-20, and you could have systems and you have a task list, and Brian Tracy says, do the first task, the biggest task, that's like 80% of the work, or automate, delegate, or smart work, Pomodoro, all these techniques that I mentioned.
Yeah.
What sort of helped you that you really could practically apply in your
One thing I did time slots. So, when I used to have exams in school, I used to be like, chapter 1, 12 to 1 p.m., chapter 2, 1 to 2 p.m. Doesn't work. It never works. And then you're at the end of your like, chapter 1 to 10, 3 to 6 p.m. It's so that doesn't work. So I used to do that even with my work. So my way of making a to-do list is that self-personal deadlines. So let's say I have 5 tasks to do today. Each task has to be done before this time. And that just helps, now whether I decide to do it in the very last 10 minutes of that deadline, or whether I decide to do it like 1 hour before, it's up to me. But it just gives me more mental space on how I approach the work. So that's a good technique that it works for me. So if you want to try that out, where you just set personal deadlines. And another thing that I really used while when I had exams and essays just a few weeks ago, I really like this app called Forest. Because it's just a really cute app. It's like the Pomodoro thing, sort of. But basically you set your own timer from anywhere from 10 minutes to 2 hours. And if you when you set the timer, there's a small sapling that starts growing. And if you use your phone, the plant dies. And the whole app has like this forest. So you're building a forest, and if you look at it at the end of the week, you'll see, okay, like half your plants are dead. You need to do a better job. So it's a very small way, but it's a nice way to keep you away from your phone, and just, at least if your phone is your distraction. So I recommend that app. I'm not a sponsor or anything, but I just really like that app. So
use promo code Shreya 30.
There is no promo code. Please don't. Yeah.
But but it's so weird. Like if you're unproductive for a day, you feel like you're responsible for global warming or something. Like, I am such a bad person. But that's interesting, because I mean, also like there are good apps like Notion, and we also are using Notion, and I think it's pretty good. Like, of course, the app that you mentioned is of a different sort of nature, but I mean, pun intended. But no, absolutely. So tell me about this. What do you do apart from the work? Like you said, you have like a 5-hour ideal workday sort of scene that you are adhering to, right? What is it that you do? I don't know. I think I saw in one of the Q&As that you like to cook and you like to sort of play the guitar, I suppose. I don't know. So are those things, those active sort of contrasting activities that you do to sort of keep yourself sane? What is the volume and what is the frequency of it? How often do you do them?
So I just like doing everything. So when I was in school, I used to be a part of anything and everything I could be. Like, stuff for dancing, singing, guitar, cooking, baking, anchoring, whatever. I just said yes, and I was in the front line. So now a lot of these interests I've still stuck with. So I'm learning singing. I've learned a bit of the guitar, so I can play any song I like. So I'm fairly okay with that. I love cooking. I used to love baking. I still love baking, but at the time, after school especially, it was like baking was like my alternate career. It was like something I was very serious about. And I used to have like stalls in college and stalls in my society for like Ganesh Chaturthi, we have stalls here.
Right.
So I used to bake cupcakes, and my sister is quite young, so at the time she was even younger. So she had friends who used to host these birthday parties. So I used to
I have a very bad joke. Did you like charge 100% advance them?
No, sadly. Well, yeah, I mean, technically, look, when I'm selling a cupcake, you have to pay me the money first, and then you take the cupcake. So, well, I mean, yeah. But yeah, like this is all stuff that I really enjoyed. But even then, kids used to come up like, I want to buy 3. So this is 50 rupees each. Can you give it to me for 100 rupees? And then, so that kind of stuff. So, especially in school. So, the kids, like, I was still older, but the kids were like, probably 10 years old. So they were asking for discounts.
Yeah.
That was always fun,
totally.
It wasn't, again, not about the money really,
but
absolutely. Always fun, just, how many sales and how much, kids are always there. They're like, you open the box and they're like, oh my God, so many colors and, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I remember this one time I had baked for my school, like high school fair. They had some someday, and I baked like 100 cupcakes.
Huh.
And my mom did the piping on one of them.
Acha.
And I normally make like round swirls with, like they look pretty. My mom, I don't know, she just put some dots and she made like a Santa Claus looking thing. And it wasn't
Okay.
like, you could see the cupcake through it.
Huh.
I was like,
Okay.
Mom, what are you doing? And she was like, no, it's fine, it's cute. And I was like, I'm not taking that. You won't believe it. The day I opened the box, everyone was like, I want that one. I'm like, why? So in that sense, you realize that, okay, it's not about what you think is right for other people. It's about what they really want. And kids like that kind of, weird, funky looking stuff. So I was really surprised. I was like pretty shocked for a minute. And it just, it just taught me a small lesson that you don't assume. You have to ask your potential customers what they want.
Absolutely.
So that's a business lesson right there. Yeah.
No. I think those sort of inclinations towards like self-employment and entrepreneurship happen like in the childhood, like when you even volunteer and you get like your first income or something like that, or like interning also, let alone like you get the first-hand experience of being in like a professional environment and how there's hierarchy and how you're supposed to have work hours and all those things. Absolutely, it's really important, and it's of course really wholesome also. Like when you're doing it in your childhood, it's of course it's not about the money, man. I mean, of course, but. So tell me about this. You are putting out content on like Reels and like you're putting out LinkedIn stuff. And I think, what is your favorite sort of platform to sort of express yourself? And you find, of course, you're doing really well on all platforms, right? So it's a sort of I'm sure you like everything for its own thing, right? Like that they bring to it. Like I'm sure like LinkedIn is more about like, building a client base and, more work related things. And Instagram is more about educating people and, of course, that is also getting income and all those things. So what is it that you really prefer doing more? What is it that is really comfortable to you?
Both. If I wouldn't be comfortable, I wouldn't have been doing it at such a large scale. I think LinkedIn, what I like about LinkedIn is that it's where I started. So I'm very much all on for the platform. It's what gave me the kind of exposure that I needed, the kind of presence that I needed. So I'm definitely committed to that. Instagram, I really like for the options it has. It's not text based. It's very visual. It's very video. I can, I love doing lives. So I love, talking to people, answering their questions. The DMs are much more organized. The stories are fun. There's polls and there's Q&As. And I just like being involved in that way. I think Instagram is more personal. Everyone feels like, okay, we're connecting with Shreya, like who Shreya is. Whereas I think on LinkedIn, it's more like we're connecting with Shreya Pattar, the content writer, So I think that impression, that personality comes out a bit differently. But I like both. And I am looking at another platform, which might just, start next week. So I'm working on something for that. So, no, not Clubhouse. I moved on from. I joined a few sessions, but then I moved on from it. I like Twitter Spaces because Twitter, like everyone's already established. It's not something you're starting from scratch, and you know the kind of people that you want to listen to. So I like Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, I've heard quite a. I mean, I think even Spotify launched Green Room, and I think even Facebook has started. So it's interesting. Yeah, I think, but the whole aspect of even being on Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces, that you have to be physically present there, right? Whereas a reel could be made like a month ago and put now.
Yeah.
So do you have like an alternative? This is something we ask a lot of like artists who come. Do you have like an alternative account where you are your own person or something of that sort on Instagram?
Yeah. I have my own. I have had my own personal account for a long time. But then I created something different because it made sense. I didn't want to turn that into everywhere, everyone like, I like having my personal space where I have my friends, my teachers, and my family stuff.
Absolutely.
So I do have that.
I think that's really important because you are always like, it's not good to, if you have like work relations and you're sharing memes, I mean, there's nothing wrong in that. I'm just saying that, that's sort of like, there's always, you're like, should I post this? Should I be this person? I don't know whom I'm catering to, whom I'm trying to talk to. So I think I'd heard Vedant Rasti talk about this. Vedant Kaushik was talking about this, that he has his own account still where he's just his own person. So I think that's really important. So I mean, firstly, this has been really wonderful talking to you, Shreya. I'm not even kidding, and this is like going to be like my last question before we move on. We have this thing in the podcast which is called the corporate question, so which only Partbhai asks because he's from the corporate world. So like my last question to you is that what is like the larger impact that you want to make with the stuff that you're putting out as you move forward?
I don't know really. It's very difficult to pinpoint something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I got someone's message yesterday saying that I just followed all your free content and I got like she made 50K.
What are you saying?
50,000 rupees. Yeah, in her first month of freelancing,
Achha.
and she's not even bought any of my ebooks. And she said, I just watched all your free content. I watched your IGTVs. I made so many notes, and I tried everything, and I made 50K in the first month. So now I started paying my own bills at home. And she just wrote this really long message. And in the end, she wrote, "I hope you realize how many lives you're impacting just by putting content out there." So I think for me, it's like, even one person who can get that kind of financial freedom and belief in themselves that yes, they can do something by themselves, they can contribute to their family. I think it's very nice. I really like it. I feel good.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's the goal. Like, just help people get some financial independence, because it's important. Having money is important.
Right. That was going to be my last question, but good that you mentioned this. What do you sort of look at freelance as we're moving forward towards automation and towards work from home and remote work and all those things sort of coming into the picture? How do you look at, because I think freelancing is something which comes really close to like a remote work situation, right? Like you are working with people. I mean, of course, not exactly, but it does, right? Like you are adhering to deadlines, you have people you are answerable to, you're working from like your own space, you decide your work hours in most cases, right? So how do you look at it in the next 10 years? How do you look at the freelance situation? How many percentage of Indians do you see sort of coming towards freelance as things are moving forward?
I don't have a solid number, but I think more and more, because in the last, especially during the pandemic, is when I started Instagram. And especially in the last few months, like 3 or 4 months, a lot of people have messaged me saying, I quit my full-time job because I started freelancing during the pandemic, and now I've quit my full-time job because freelancing is making more. So there are people out there who are, because they're working from home, they can freelance on the side. Maybe their company doesn't have to know. So they're doing it on the side, or they built it in such a way that it's now just their full-time thing. They can quit their job. So just based on the kind of people I have spoken to, I think there's a lot of potential in the fact that whether or not you are already a freelancer, you might just end up being one, because you would if you do it once, if you make your first dollar online, I always say this, if you make your first dollar online, it just becomes very easy to make your like thousands more, because then you understand the process, which is why I said find your first client, because that feeling that you get when you do that is going to push you to keep doing it more and more. So I think there's no number as such. Just a lot of people are, if they step into it once, they'll probably want to stick around for a few years. So,
Totally. That's a wonderful answer. Absolutely. So Parth bhai, over to you.
All right. So, Shreya, this is the corporate question that we ask everybody, and you'd realize why this is what we call a corporate question. So, question basically is, what do you expect from yourself in the coming future? Not a particular timeline, but what do you expect to do in the coming future?
Very very specific. Like, again, it's very broad. But I want to see myself rich. It just, because I know that so much of my life, my parents have given me everything. Studying abroad was not an easy choice. They gave up their dream car. Literally, like 1 week before that, we were looking at cars, and then the very next week, I was like, I don't want to do medicine. I want to study literature, and they were like, okay, you can go abroad then. And they, they shifted their dreams, and they've done that. This is probably the latest one, but they've done that constantly. So for me, that is one of the things that, it's to create the best possible life for all of us inside the house. That's one thing. And of course, there's the large scale impact. I really like being out there. I really love seeing people, making their own money. Love seeing people saying, I loved your ebook. I read it in one go. Now I'm so excited to apply it. So I love that, people are so connected with the kind of content I create, the kind of videos I put out there. They'll watch this podcast, and just giving 1 hour of your time watching a podcast
Swipe up, guys,
I'm involved in. So just doing that. They swipe up when you say swipe up, so people are just so involved and connected with what I do. I love that. So I think those are two main goals: to just be more connected with them and to create the best life for my family, because they've done a lot for me.
Absolutely. And I really hope that whatever that you're sort of envisioning, manifests, because I think you're touching a lot of lives. But no. I think you are really doing a wonderful job, and you've just not limited it to your. I mean, even because even Tony Robbins says that living is giving, right? Like it's about the core essence of life is just not thinking about yourself. Like you are thinking about like your whole family and the long-term impact of what you're doing, and also empowering so many people with what you're doing, especially free of cost. So I would just urge all the people, please go and check out Shreya's ebooks. We're going to link them in the description, and please swipe up. Why not? But no. And also, please go and follow Shreya. I mean, she already has a lot of followers, but few more she won't mind. So please go and follow her.
I won't mind.
Yeah, she really won't mind. So I mean, go and check out Shreya's socials, her LinkedIn, her Instagram, why you not doing YouTube? Come on, YouTube.
That's what's coming next.
Yes.
That's
Okay,
what's
that's
coming
great.
next. Yeah,
That's
I'm
great.
so excited. There's something very different coming. I'm so excited to do that. So excited.
Perfect. I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to it. So
Yeah,
also, if by this time, if like the podcast is out by when the YouTube channel, that is also going to be linked. And below all those links is our Instagram link. Please go and follow.
Yeah. You should follow these guys on YouTube. You should check out the other interviews because I really like them. Like,
Thank
you
you
know,
so
I think
much.
the questions are fun and there's so much energy in both of them. Like, you know, there's so much energy. I don't see that much energy in a lot of people. So
That's so kind
it
of you.
makes me also more, you know, okay,
Yes.
let's do this. You know? So yeah,
I just did a line.
interviews.
I just did a line of cocaine. I'm going to edit it, but there's really nothing more to that. But no, I'm kidding. But no, absolutely. I mean, we just enjoy doing this. It's like a lot of fun. We are really inquisitive about like other people doing stuff.
I can see that.
Yeah. So it's just that. But I think you also, I mean, energy could be like from the face value, but there's a lot of energy required to what you're also doing. So big ups to you for that. And on that note, thank you so much. If you guys are following on YouTube, please subscribe to us, and you can check out our website www.soundzonepodcast.com. We paid for the domain for 2 years, so we are just plugging it. And it's just a landing page to the YouTube channel. And also check our audio versions out if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Apple Music, etc. And also big shout out to our graphic designer Saurabh, who's doing all the wonderful work, and Ritwik, who's done the intro and outro sequences. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much, Shreya. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and we hope to see many more wonderful things from you. And whatever you said today and whatever you're aiming and wanting to do, manifest tenfold. So thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And we guys will see you in the next podcast. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Shreya. Bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you so much. This was fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sure.